Right before we jump into this preview video, if you haven't checked out my Gear Vault, it's the best way to input, organize, and protect your gear. Go ahead and download it right now for free for iOS and Android. And now, let's get to the video. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a preview of the Sony RX100 Mark VI. Now we're up here in New York City because we just got to go to the press conference that Sony had, and later on today they're giving us some cameras to take out into the real world so that we can work on a real world review of sorts, which will come out later in the future. But for now, I wanted to give you the high level specs and tell you what I think about this camera. So we have a 20.1 megapixel 1-inch CMOS sensor, which is pretty similar to what we've seen in the past models. And remember, it's a stacked sensor, which comes in handy when you're trying to take a lot of frames a second, which I'll tell you about in just a second. Now, the body size is basically the same size as the RX100 Mark V, and why is that interesting? Because they squeezed in here a 24 to 200 millimeter lens. Now, before, it was a 24 to 70, and when I did the real world review of that, it felt a little short. It was a nice range. It gave you a nice aperture of a 1.8 to 2.8, where now they have a 24 to 200, which is a huge range, but it's a 2.8 to 4.5. So you are losing a little bit of light on the wider angle, but for some reason, Sony kept pushing this fact that it has a large aperture throughout. That's marketing, because the old one was a 1.8 to 2.8, so you're losing out on that. But the trade-off is the fact that you're getting 24 to 200 in the same size body as the older camera. That's super interesting. Now, it has 24 frames per second shooting capability with full AF, which is really nice if you want to shoot a million photos and then just pick the best one for later. So that's really darn quick. And the reason it can shoot like that and have the AF, it has 315 phase detect AF points that cover 65% of the viewfinder. And it also has IAF, which is 2 times better than the last model. It's basically using what the Sony A9 has for IAF. And IAF is great if you've ever used it, or if you haven't used it, you may want to check it out with a Sony because it works really well. It has steady shot like before. It also has 4 stops of stabilization, which will come in handy being that you're losing out on the low light capability with the wider open aperture of the 1.8 to 2.8, because you're starting at 2.8, and we'll see later with the hands-on as you zoom in where the 2.8 starts to come out and where you start to get to 4.5, because that's something to keep in mind. So steady shot is going to be great for when you're shooting subjects in low light situations that may not be moving. The more the subject moves, steady shot doesn't matter, because if it's a slow shutter speed, they're still going to go ahead and blur. You've got 4K at 24 frames a second. It's still limited to only 5 minutes, but again, in such a compact, small camera, it should probably do more than 5 minutes of 4K shooting. That's what it should do. It also still does the 1,000 frames a second, the super slow-mo, but keep in mind it's using a fraction of the sensor to do that slow motion. They also added HLG for anybody out there looking to use that, and one of the coolest features that was missing in the prior models is the pop-up EVF. Not that it didn't have it before, it has the pop-up EVF, but with one press of the button, the EVF pops up and the viewfinder part pops out, and with one press, it all goes down. So before you had to pop it up, pull it out, and then push it in to push it down. With one press of a button, it either goes up, it goes down, pops out, does everything it needs to do. I love the EVF. Just keep in mind it's about this big, so it's a little more difficult to use to get your eye up in there, but it's nice to have a viewfinder to use on a compact camera because most of the cameras have taken them away. You have a 3-inch touchscreen. Finally, you have a touchscreen on this camera, which means you can do touch AF. You can also do touch to shoot. I don't personally like doing touch to shoot in my own shooting, but some people like having that ability, especially if you hold the camera up and tilt the screen down, touch the button, or touch the screen and have it shoot. That might come in handy. Now, it has no cold shoe, which means you cannot attach a microphone to the top of it to make it a good camera for vlogging. Also, it flips up the screen like this, so you could use it as a vloggy camera, but it also doesn't have a mic input, so you're not going to get better audio, especially if you're in a loud environment, lots of wind, lots of background noise. It's not going to be the best for vlogging, but if you're just in a quiet area, you could still go ahead and do that and have the flippy out screen to make it easier to go ahead and see. The other thing that I don't like about it is it's $1,200. That's $200 more expensive than what the 5 came out as, so $200 difference. That's a lot of money for a point and shoot. But there's a lot of people out there who go, I want one camera to take around that has a mega zoom and is small and fits in my pocket. If that's for you, if that's what you're looking for, then this camera may be for you. It's expensive. It's going to cost you a lot of money. So don't bitch if you say, I want this camera that does this, this, and this, and they tell you it's $1,200. Just know that it's a trade-off. You're either going to use your phone when you travel, or if you want one camera to rule them all, it could be this. It could be the perfect point-and-shoot camera. Could be. We're going to take it out into the real world and see. That's where I'm going to leave it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.